Hey, welcome everybody to the Talent and Strategy Show here on the Success is a Choice Podcasting Network. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler, and today we got a great show. We're going to be talking about productivity that affects all of us, time management. We're too busy. Productivity is a thing that's always on our mind. How can we be more productive, effective, or efficient with our time? We want to hit our little thought for the day as we start off. We all have 1,440 minutes in a day, 1,440 minutes in a day. So it doesn't matter who you are, how rich you are, how old or young you are. We all have the same amount of time in the day. Now, this show is brought to you by Affinity Recruiting and Consulting. You can find out more about their services at affinitytoday.com. Let me bring in our guests today. We got a couple good ones. And our first guest is not really a guest. He's our co-host, Ruston Pierce. He's the president of consulting for Affinity Recruiting and Consulting. So Ruston, good afternoon to you.
How are we doing today?
We are doing awesome today. Glad to have you back on the show. Glad to be with us today for this productivity. I know that just the other day you were saying how, you're a driver. In the last show, you're a driver. And so maybe you'll get a nugget or two out of this to help you with your driving. But our guest expert, our expert panelist today is Mandy Green. Mandy's a longtime Division I soccer coach. She also is the founder of Busy.Coach, and she is also the national recruiting director for Tutor Collegiate Strategy. So Mandy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me on.
Well, let's get right into this. And just in case people are really concerned about efficiency and productivity and busyness, and they're only going to watch like the first couple of minutes of this, Mandy, give us the one or two things that we need to know about productivity so that if they have to get off this call, they've gotten some nuggets.
Yeah, I would say, two things come to mind is that not all time is created equal and not all tasks are created equal. Right. And so you might be more productive at 7 a.m. versus 7 p.m. Well, a lot of people I know push off their high value, the big tasks until later on in the day. Well, later on in the day, it's going to take you 5 hours to do it. Where had you been more intentional about aligning, your natural body energy rhythms to when you're working on your high value tasks, it would take you 2 hours in the morning where it's going to take you 5 hours at night. And so it's just, that's a big thing I preach to a lot of the coaches that I work with. We got to be strategic and align. And it's just paying attention to when your energy is good, when your focus is good, right? If you're aligning high value tasks, you can get 10 times more things done in that, in that little magic time than if you were to push it off and not, be intentional about that. And then my second thing, right? Not all tasks are created equal. I'm really big with coaches. Let's create a results list, not a to-do list, right? So think about it in terms of what college coaches are doing all the time is recruiting. Well, they'll show up and a lot of times I'm like, show me your calendar. What are you working on? And they have recruiting on there. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Right? Is not all tasks are created equal. Well, we're organizing our database, so we're having a meeting about recruiting. I'm like, that's not recruiting, right? Recruiting is moving somebody to the next mile marker. And so what's a task that, like, getting your top 10 recruits to schedule a campus visit? That's movement. And now, you've got a metric you're aiming to hit, and you either did it or you didn't do it. And if you did it, awesome, rinse and repeat. If you didn't do it, now we can, go back and reevaluate our method to the madness. What were our actions and where do we need to make adjustments, to make sure that we're hitting our goal. So not all time is created equal. Not all tasks are created equal are kind of two big things that I usually focus on a lot. And that usually solves a decent amount of problems for most people when it comes to productivity.
Mandy, I'm curious because you said something a second ago I think is really, really valuable. You talked about prioritizing tasks. So if we looked at your list of results that you want to achieve, how'd you prioritize them? What was your thought process in identifying what the priorities are versus what is something I can put away for a little while?
I always usually start by asking myself, what is the consequence if I don't do this? is because there's really for everybody, running a business or coaching a team, there are hundreds of things that could be done. And it's kind of figuring out, it's kind of the difference between focusing on growth versus focusing on, like what's right in front of you operationally, right, to keep things running. And so that's where, I encourage everybody is to make most people don't make progress and they feel like they're on that hamster wheel is because they're stuck in the day-to-day running of the program. And I'm like, no, we got to block off 1 hour and identify, right, what are the tasks that are going to build the program into what you want it to be, right? So we call it the growth hour, right? Growth hour. What is building? And so it's identifying, what are your roles in the position that you're in and what are those key tasks in that role that are going to help, move forward. But it's always kind of a good go-to is, what is the consequence of not doing this? Is kind of a thing. And, it depends on the time of year, if they're in season versus not in season or whatever, there's different things that they need to do. But yeah, what's the consequence of not doing it? That usually is man, this would be major for my family or for my team or for my recruiting. This is a top priority, right?
How often would you say you do that?
I like to, so once a month, ideally every couple of weeks, but at least once a month, there are 5 strategic questions that I have the coaches that I work with go through. And those 5 questions are, so let's look back. So say we do it every 2 weeks. Let's look back over the previous 2 weeks. What were the results that we got, based on the key roles that the coach plays? And then based on the results and the progress, what do we need to continue doing? What should we do more of? What should we do less of? What should we stop doing altogether because it's just not working? And then what do we need to start doing? Right. And so, a lot of it too, I would say we got to start with the goals, right? Where are they after? And then, it's asking ourselves, is this something that is going to take me a step closer to that goal? If it is, it's probably a top priority. And we need to make sure that we're doing more of it. And a lot of times to be productive, a lot of times it's not adding more stuff. It's just, what can we take away is usually what gets people to where they need to go.
So take away like social media, get rid of social media or email. What's your thoughts on email? And I know a lot of what you might say or give us insights on today, it might work for somebody better than others. Like for me personally, I love to zero out my emails. I love having no emails in my inbox if possible. But I know that that's not possible for everybody, and it may not even be healthy sometimes. What's your thoughts on things to take away?
I'm a big routine person, and I certainly with email, it can be somebody's kryptonite, but some people, it might not have a problem with it. I would say most coaches open their inbox and use it as their to-do list. That is the worst thing to do, right? Because it doesn't come in any sort of, it doesn't come in order of importance, and it's just kind of random. And that's where you can get sucked into and pulled into your inbox all day. And so I'm a bigger fan of whether you're inbox zero, focused or not. I want coaches to be intentional about how they're using it. And so I like to, I think, email is meant to be a tool to communicate. And so I want coaches first to, network. So can I send one email first thing in the morning? So being intentional about networking to build my network of people to, connect, to maybe make recruiting easier because now I'm getting referrals, right? And people or I'm expressing gratitude to somebody who maybe helped me with a recruit that was on campus or whatever, right? Or, somebody just who was nice about something is thank you for, now that person's going to go out of their way next time they see me to, they're going to go above and beyond, and it's just one email, right? I've seen, and it certainly rose up the ranks in coaching, right? It's kind of about who not what So one email for that. And then I like having coaches, establish what they're doing the night before, but then it's with their email. who am I waiting on something from? Can I just fire out those emails first thing in the morning, right? So I'm intentionally, I don't want to have to last minute, all of a sudden my fire become their fire because I wasn't, organized. Let's be proactive and reach out to those people, email. And then it's, who's going to need something from me? And this is where most coaches, I think, have their blinders on and they're just focused on what's right in front of them. But it's, let's look ahead, for this next week. Do I have games? Are people going to need my hotel roster, my this, my that? What are the things that I can get to them? Right. And then I find less email comes in because I've proactively sent some things out. And then it's just a routine of how you handle it. Right. Because we all know, right, if we have our email open all day, every day, for those, some people might need that. But for most coaches, we don't need to keep our email open all day, every day, unless you're working on recruiting the entire day. Right. But I like, let's go through from when I last checked it to that moment. What emails can I delete? I go through quick. What emails can I forward on to the people who need the information? I can respond to it within 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And then what is maybe something I'm going to work on later that it's just like, yep, I see you there. I'm not going to touch you. I'm going to get to you eventually. But I get through my emails, all of that probably, it takes a little planning the night before, 30 minutes. And then, because, right, coaches, because that's who I work with, right? We're not in the business of managing email, right? We're in the business to make an impact with these student athletes that we're working with. And we can't do that if we're allowing ourselves to get pulled in a million different directions because we got our email open all day, right? And so I'm trying to get coaches to be more proactive with it and take control of it and use it for its, the purpose that it was intended for, and then shut it down and go be a coach, right? And go build your program or whatever, right? But stuff like that is kind of my thoughts about email.
So
and
Jamy,
I know working with Dan Tudor with Tudor Collegiate Strategies, one of the things that you talk with coaches about, and I think that this could work for any industry to a degree, is that maybe have templates or maybe have some responses that are common. It's not going to handle every email, but we know there's going to be certain emails that come to us sometimes that we're going to respond essentially the same way to those. Yeah. Is that something I imagine that's something that you suggest or you recommend if possible? That way it cuts down the time so you're not reinventing the wheel on every email.
Oh, 100%. And that's where I think, especially, and that's why I was such a fan of all the Dan Tudor stuff and his total recruiting solution, because it is, they're templates that coaches can use and then customize it once you have it. But coaches get, and this is where I think coaches make a mistake, is that we're redoing the same emails over and over and over again. And it's like, what are we doing? Like this, we're making the job much harder than it needs to be because we keep recreating the same stuff over and over again. It's like recruits ask this, multiple recruits, no matter how many in your database, all tend to ask the same questions, and you have the same selling points every single year. I want coaches to do the work at a high quality once, save it as a template, and then reuse it. This can be too. I think emails, absolutely. I think, booking hotels, when we would book our hotels, right? I sent that same email, once at the beginning of the year. Why recreate? Or it's like, what did I send to him? What did he need from me? No, like send that once, save it. And now I've got it and I can reuse it. I think that is same with like meetings, right? Every coach has a meeting, the first team meeting at the beginning of the year. Well, if we're being efficient and effective, we would save that, save it as a, some sort of checklist, first team meeting checklist. All you got to do is pull that out and, we don't need to talk about this year, but we should add this. Like you're going to do the same work you do every single year, but way faster at a higher quality, because again, you do the work really well once, save it. And that's how you can optimize. You can't optimize randomness, right? Or just making things up as you go.
So I'm curious. So Jamy threw me under the bus a minute ago. I did admit that I'm a driver, and I can go really fast. And I had to learn a long time ago that my calendar was my friend.
Mhm.
When you're dealing with somebody like me who wants to go really, really fast all the time, always trying to get to the next thing, how do you come alongside and help them understand to have more structure in their life and use their calendar? What's that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, I love the ones who go really fast because, right, there's no need to motivate you. If anything, with the people that are going really fast, I have to talk those people into creating work stop times, right? Because you are the kind of person that can burn yourself out because you're
Yep.
trying to be on 24/7. Am I right?
Yep.
And so that's where I found one of the most productive, because I think all coaches, we have the work in us, right? We are not shy about work, and we get we can work 24/7, and I certainly have been guilty of it. And that's honestly probably why my company was built to begin with. I certainly didn't get into all of this with the intention of starting it as a business. I was trying to solve my own problems. And one of the most effective things that I did was create a work stop time where it was so it's kind of like the going on vacation phenomenon, right? You get a ton of things done before the day before you go on vacation because you don't want to bring any work with you. Well,
Sure.
when you're on vacation, you're resting and you're recuperating, right? And then you come back fresher the next day. This is where I find most people are more in tune with the charge on their phone than recharging their own battery for high
Yep.
performance consistently all year round, right? And so that's where we establish work stop times. So what it's going to do, it's one thing. I feel like it's a keystone habit. It's one thing that affects multiple different areas. That one thing now gets you working more urgently in the day. Because this is where, right? Parkinson's law, work will expand to the time you give it. If you give yourself all day, it's going to take you all day to do all your work. If you give yourself a shorter amount of time, you're going to get it done. You will get it
Sure.
done. So it's going to help your discipline. It's going to help your focus. It's going to help you eliminate distractions. And you got to prioritize, right? I don't have all day to do everything. I got to make sure that I'm really dialed in on what are the things I need to accomplish today to win the day, right? But then you shut down. You turn your phone off, put it in, airplane mode. You go for a walk, you do whatever it is that's fun for you, right? But now you're recharging your mental, spiritual, physical energy, right? So you can come back strong and high levels the next day, because there's certainly people who can go 24/7, not burn out, but I would say you are the minority, and you're probably succeeding in spite of, right?
Sure.
What you should be doing. But but still, calendar, I don't know that. I've never seen anybody build a powerhouse anything without a little bit of structure. And that's where I don't think you have to structure all day there's some people that need every single minute of every single day, but there's others who are like, no, like that freaks me out. I need to just know what the few things I need to do. So we just kind of shrink their to-do list and then give them the flexibility of the day to do it when they need to do it. But I was a big fan of my mornings were good. I got to key in on one of my 3 big things. This is the only time of the day when I'm going to structure it. And then I need the flexibility to deal with my team and to deal with all the other things that might come of the day. But I've never met anybody who creates the freedom in their life or the lifestyle that they want or the success that they want with just randomness, so a little bit of structure can really go a long way, but also the rest and recovery, right? It's kind of the combination of the two, I think, is the magic sweet spot.
You've mentioned rest and recovery. Have you found research, or is it very person to person? Like, is it better if you stay up late at night and get a lot done, send those emails late at night, and then sleep in a little bit more in the morning? Or is it better to go to bed a little bit earlier, wake up, when the rooster crows and the sun comes up, or is it very dependent on the person?
I think the research is pretty consistent in that you need, a certain amount of sleep every single day. But then I think it's dependent on the person, right? Because each person's going to have their own rhythms of when they're doing things the best. And I mean, those of you that are listening that are parents know that, right? All time management and productivity gets thrown out the window when you got kids. I've got a 9-year-old who's homesick today, and right, there hasn't been a whole lot of sleep in for mom the last few days, but it's, and I would say it changes, right? I mean, I used to be a night owl and I hated getting up in the morning, but now my kids get on the bus at 6:30. So I need to, I'm up, and I got to be ready to take advantage of the time when my brain and my energy is good. Otherwise I kind of lose it to the rest of the day and all that stuff. So I think it's dependent on the person.
I'm curious, because we do have a wide range of viewers, and they're in a lot of different industries. And I think productivity is one of those transferable things that crosses over industry. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, what are some tools or resources that you've seen that would be useful for anyone who's looking to become more productive?
I mean, I think, again, it kind of depends on, because there are some people who are paper, right? And they want a paper planner. I mean, I think people just need to be kind of in tune with how they work best. There's some that have the calendar system, on their phones, and that works for them. I'm not a big productivity app person, because I find you get buried in your phone and you spend more time setting the stupid thing up and thinking, oh, this new bright shiny object is going to be the thing that makes me productive. Well, no, all it did was distract me from the things I really needed to be doing at this moment. So honestly, my favorite productivity tools is a clock, right? Like I set up a clock on my computer, and I have, it's either, I mean, there's different ones. I like sometimes going 30 minutes or 50 minutes, where it's like, all right, this is the time. I've got my big thing I need to do. This is how much time I think I can do it in. Boom. I push the start on the clock, and then I work. And the funny thing, the first time I did it, I was like working, thinking I like made all this progress and all this time had passed, and like 6 minutes had passed. I'm like, oh, like my focus wasn't very good. And so, right, I was all over the map, but just that. And then, I mean, I think even, I don't know that it's a tool, but it's just, again, being intentional about the environment that you're setting yourself up in. Because, man, like there's no productivity tool that is going to work for you if you're, some need the coffee shop and that buzzing in the background. I sometimes work my best if there's a football game on for some reason in the background, or HGTV, right? But then all of a sudden I want to remodel my bathroom, and, then I get distracted from that stuff. But like it just, what is the environment you need to be in? Because that, I heard this example the other day. It's like a cactus is not going to work well in this like lush, green environment, right? And it's not because the cactus isn't strong or whatever. It's just in the wrong place to do what it needs to do, and so that's where I think it's really key for people they got to be dialed in on what is the environment. Do they need quiet? Do they need noise? Do they need other people around? Do they need to be by themselves? I think it's very individual, but I think that more than any productivity tool, I think you need a planning system, right? We need a way to because I think it's hard to organize your thoughts if everything's in your head. So I think, but whether it's paper or it's digital or whatever, however you do it, but a planning system. And then I think putting yourself in the right environment, and then a clock. A clock is my favorite to just keep me on task. To, again, limit the amount of time that I'm allowing myself to do something helps me stay focused.
But, the clock concept, I mean, that's a very real life concept. Why are meetings and agendas timed? Because they're keeping everybody on task. They're trying not to go down rabbit trails.
Yep.
I talk to people all the time about board meetings and making sure every agenda item has a time limit on it so that it doesn't go off the rails and talk about 100 things that don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, I mean, Jamy, you probably recognize with like basketball, right? Every basketball practice I've ever sat in on, you got the clock going, and it's, because there's a certain amount of time that we got to get to a certain number or a certain, outcome that you're after. And it's timed, right? And what does it do? It gets people moving along a little faster,
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a couple things in there that that got me thinking, in the same concept of essentially being self-aware, understanding yourself, because you mentioned a couple things is are you a paper person? Are you a technological person? Do you like to go to a coffee shop, to do your work, or can you do it with the game on?
Mm-hmm.
For me and Ruston, I'm guessing right away, doing anything with a game on is a bad idea. Nothing is getting done.
Yeah.
The same way you mentioned the app on your phone. If you're somebody that gets on Twitter or Instagram or scrolls a lot on your phone,
Mm-hmm.
probably having an app is going to be counterproductive, because that's a distraction. So knowing yourself and being self-aware is probably one of the first hacks or the first strategies of productivity.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And I assume when you talked about football, you were talking about American football, even though
I
you're a
can
soccer
watch.
coach.
I can watch both. I like having American football in the back. Like, I love football. I'm all about it. So when fall comes, like, that's when we'll up our Hulu account, right? And just so I can watch some of and I like college and pro. Vikings are my team. So it's, just, I like watching that kind of stuff. And honestly, like, my time limit is, all right, first quarter is I got to get these things done. And I mean, and now granted, I'm not working on like things that require a lot of brain power, right? So I'm trying to pair it up with what's going on. For me to really like focus and get into deep work, I do put productivity music on in the background, like the binaural beats, like I YouTube, right? I just kind of put that on in the background, because if there's music, like words to the music, I'm like dancing and I'm singing, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait, okay, I'm not focused. So I found, that productivity music works for me. But if I'm just replying to a lot of emails and doing, low brain, capacity tasks, that's when I can have that kind of stuff on in the background. Or I'll like start newsletter articles and just start, writing some things, and, just the noise in the background for some reason keeps me moving along. But you're right. It totally is dependent on the person.
When it comes to social media, just in general, do you have any hacks for putting together maybe a content schedule, or doing anything to make social media a little bit easier and maybe productive?
Yeah, I like, so if I'm talking to coaches, the thing that I like, for example, I just was talking to a soccer coach yesterday, and I asked him, so whether you're in business or you're a coach promoting your program, I asked, what are the 3, 4, 5 big things that you would want somebody to know about your brand, about, if they were about your team or about the campus, the academics, what are those 4 or 5 things? And then what I have coaches do is, okay, so you've got your segments, and then what are all the questions that recruits tend to have about those things? And then sit your team down, right? Because us as adults, we're not in the locker room, we're not hanging out in the dorms, we're not going to class, we're not doing all that stuff. So I said, sit down with your team, and right, the team is closer in age to the recruits that they're after. So just just age gap wise, is they'll be able to tell us what should be posted, and they're probably going to have it on their phone already. So that is the easiest way to do it, right? Is key in on what do you want people to know? What are the 4 or 5 things about your brand that you want them to know? What are the questions that you can proactively answer? And then get from the people who are in the mix of things, right? Get your team, like these are the questions recruits have. What pictures do you have? And then I like having, whether you put them in folders based on categories, or just, November, we posted this, December, January, February, and just months of the year. But then we gotta track, right? And pay attention to, whether it's how many, what are our metrics, and depending on the key metrics for you. I think for coaches, the key metric needs to be engagement, right? Who cares if a lot of people are liking it, if it's not creating conversations, right? Then what's the point? But it's, how many times are we posting, maybe then, and we got this much engagement, maybe next month we try to, you could change the time, you could change the frequency or whatever, but just each month, based on your metric, let's adjust. Or maybe video got a heck of a lot more engagement than pictures. Okay, next month, let's make adjustments, right? And so this is how just, you've got them in folders. Now you course correct, right, at the end of each month. And then just month by month, you're now building a social media system that by the end of the year should be kind of a, more of a well-oiled machine if you are really putting in the work to pay attention what's getting you, the engagement that you need. And then, right, for a lot of coaches, they've got their young, work studies, or they've got their young assistants who are the ones doing the posting. Well, we need to capture how they are doing it. And this, I like using Loom video, right? Just, record how, what their passwords are, or the simple process that they went through. And then now they've got the process documented. They've got all the pictures. They've been making improvements. So it's pretty easy, for the next year, if that person moved on to a new position or whatever, it's easy to transition somebody in, right? But now you've got, a full year's worth of content created, and the process for how to, optimize.
So you just said something that made me really curious. How, and with the coaches that you've been working with, how have you seen name, image, and likeness affect their productivity?
I haven't, that hasn't been as much of a thing that I mean, of the coaches that I've talked to, there hasn't been a ton that are, they're just kind of starting to get into it. So I don't know that it really has been a thing, but I do, no matter whether it's a name, image, and likeness thing. You're not going to be productive if you're going in with the intention of being a consumer, right?
Yeah.
As I'm going to consume, because there's a lot of people making tons of money who are being paid to keep our attention, and so no matter if it's a name, image, and likeness thing, whether it's you're creating for your program or whatever, and this is where what I try to do with the coaches is, okay, let's set a specific time in the day that you're not checking social media. You're maybe going in to post, but we're not consuming, right? We got other things, important things to do to build our program. We can't get stuck in consuming, right? And that's where it's like, if we get stuck in consuming during the day, during the workday, then we got to recognize what was it that triggered us to all of a sudden become procrastinators, or what triggered us to maybe it's fatigue. And so now we need to come up with, instead of picking up the phone and, trying to take a mental break, maybe we got to get up and try something different to recoup our energy and our focus, so we can get back on track, so we can get work done sooner, and then go home and actually have a life outside of your job.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just a difference of, are we a consumer, or are we a creator? And I don't know that I really answered your question with the name, image, and likeness, but I haven't really worked with too many coaches where that's really been too big of a thing. But I do hope they actually put some mandates on that, because that seems to be getting obnoxious, it seems like, with how much money these kids are making. But
quick story. I have a close friend whose daughter just signed with a Power 5 school, and in her aid package, it's a minor sport, so it's a package. It's not a full scholarship. In her aid package was $6,000 a year from NIL.
Yeah,
and it's in print, and I'm sitting there going, number one, I thought this wasn't supposed to be attached to the school. Number two, they literally documented it as a guarantee of her package. So as stuff like that continues to grow, that's got to be, I don't see any way that doesn't become a major problem for coaches.
Absolutely. And that's why, it does seem to be escalating, and it will get regulated, right? Because, coaches are doing above and beyond what they should be doing, and there's always ways to finagle around the rules and stuff. And so, but it's those coaches that are the reason why it will, hopefully get mandated more to a point, because it just makes it so the little guys have no, there's nothing they can do to keep up with these schools that are able to do this name, image, and likeness stuff. But that's a whole nother story, right? That's another big beast that I'm That's not my lane. I'm staying out of that's not, yeah. I don't even go there because I can't even begin to comprehend the mess that all that's creating.
Well, our quote for the day is from the legendary basketball player Jerry West. He's actually the logo of the NBA, but you can't get much done in life if you only work on the days that you feel good. You can't get much done in life if you only work on the days that you feel good. We've been talking about productivity today, and you can't be productive. You can't really achieve anything if you only work on the days that you feel good, according to Jerry West. Mandy, Ruston, love to hear some final thoughts or thoughts on that quote before we get you guys out of here. So final thoughts on productivity.
Ruston, you want to start?
I would just say, the quote's definitely true. There are days when you don't feel good and you got to get up and do it anyway. And so, that's where I think on the days when I'm not feeling it, that's where being highly structured and having everything documented and planned out. And, I am a calendar person. I have to be. So, making sure that everything's in the calendar to the minute, that will keep me structured and keep me productive on the days when I'm not feeling it.
No, for sure. And I 100% believe in that quote. And that's where I do think, like how you started this podcast, everybody's got the same amount of time. It's usually the ones that get ahead faster are the ones who just have not necessarily structure all day, but just they have key routines in place that help keep them on track no matter how they're feeling. And I think those two that get ahead faster are the ones they don't always have perfect days every day, but they just get back to their routines, help them get back on track quicker. So they're not losing just one day. I think those that don't feel like it don't just lose a day, they lose multiple days in a row, where those that are successful, might lose a half a day, but have ways to get themselves back on track. And so it is, it's 100% true. And routines, I think a morning routine to win the day, right? You're not going to win the day if you can't win your morning and get your morning off to a good start. I think a workday startup routine, right? When your butt hits the seat every single day, I think it is getting emotionally reconnect to your intentions. Where it's not, why am I doing this? But what am I accomplishing today? Right? Where am I going with this? Why am I sitting here right now? And then what is my, look at my plan. What is the plan? And am I on track? Whether I feel like it or not, and that's where I like scheduling, right? Blocking so I tell myself what I am doing in that hour. I find when I don't plan it and just show up and it's random, that's when, if I don't feel like it, I can get off track. So it's block it. And I tell myself what I'm going to do each hour, and then I just show up and do the work. Right. And so it's not like I have any option. Nope. This is what I said I'm going to do. And then it's a workday shutdown routine. How can I set myself up to win tomorrow? And then a power down, right? How can I power down so I'm sleeping well, I'm re-energizing, I'm having fun, I'm doing what I need to do to bring my best the next day, right? So those 4 routines I find really helpful. But yeah, those 2 quotes, I love those 2 quotes. They're great.
Well, Mandy, Ruston, thank you for joining us. Everyone, thank you for watching this live on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, or listening to it later on the Success is a Choice podcast feed, wherever you get podcasts at. And by the way, if you want to win the day, a great way to win the day, when you're on your way to work in the morning, listen to the podcast. If you're on the stationary bike, if you're on the treadmill, instead of listening to that rock music or that hip hop music that makes you go faster, listen to the podcast. It'll make you be smarter while you're on that exercise machine. But seriously though, thank you so much for checking us out. Next week, we'll be at the same time, whatever time, 11 o'clock. Wow. 11 o'clock a.m. on the Eastern time zone. We look forward to having you again. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?